At Dr. Sellers Educate, we help nurse educators and leaders advance their skills, pass the certification exam, and achieve excellence in nursing. Whether you're preparing for the CNE, CHSE, or CNML exam, our coaching programs, masterclasses, and study resources are designed to help you succeed with confidence. We provide a NCC-accredited continuing education, faculty development workshops, and practical strategies to strengthen teaching excellence, simulation, curriculum design, and accreditation readiness. We partner with schools of nursing and healthcare organizations to support faculty development, certification initiatives, accreditation preparation, and educational excellence. More than 5,000 educators have trusted Dr. Sellers Educate to support their professional growth and certification journey. Visit us to learn more and join a community committed to excellence.
Most nurse educators are really good nurses. Oftentimes, we have excellent clinical skills. We are identified as the go-to on our nursing unit. How many of us, though, are really taught how to teach, how to facilitate those complex discussions that we need to have with our students so they have a better understanding, a better ability to demonstrate competency when it comes to a skill, when it comes to their ability to recognize those cues? That's exactly what we're going to explore today as we take a deeper look at competency one and what does it really mean for us to facilitate learning with our students. Welcome back, everybody, to Dr. Sellers Educate. If this is the first time that you're here, welcome. We're glad that you're here. If you're returning, you know what we do. First of all, you print out your study worksheet. This is going to hold you accountable, hopefully, because you're going to write down today's date, whatever date you're watching the snapshot. The second objective is that you write down what is it the takeaway for you today? What is the takeaway that you want to be able not only to understand, but also to have the ability to apply this concept, this framework really that we're going to talk about to help us become a better nurse educator and to also help us achieve certification. So as you look at resources today, we want you to start with our devotional. Okay, so we have a devotional. And you can see it right here. It's called Rooted in Wisdom. It is specifically for nurse educator colleagues because for me, I've always used some type of devotional. It helps me stay grounded. And I know for us as nurse educator colleagues, we certainly need support. So we're going to take a look at day 76 today, challenging the status quo in education. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because I love sharing this clip of colleagues that we had a chance. All right, so I'm going to leave it on this view. That works. Okay, so day 76, challenging the status quo in education. Henry Ford said, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Isn't that the truth? We know that that's the definition of insanity, right? Is to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different outcome. Our devotional says true innovation requires challenging the status quo. As educators, we must be willing to improve or to question traditional teaching methods and explore new ways to improve student success. Even small changes can have a big impact. All right, I'm going to read that again. True innovation requires challenging the status quo. As educators, we must be willing to question traditional teaching methods and explore new ways to improve student success. Even small changes can have a big impact, and we know that to be true. When we make a tweak to an active learning strategy, it can cause students to be more engaged, to have a deeper understanding of a concept. And even more importantly, it can help students be able to make safer patient care decisions. A good example that we often talk about are those unfolding case studies. When students are actually able to develop them and to share them with a colleague, specific clinical situations, they feel very excited, right? They often feel proud of the success that they had when it comes to providing safe patient care. As much as we can leverage those experiences, the more engaged, the more connected and competent our students are going to be. All right, so today's action for our devotional, day 76, is to identify just one long-standing teaching practice that may need reevaluation and consider a new approach. All right, so that's what we want you today, to consider a new approach. And where are you going to get this information from and recommendations about the approach? Well, I'm glad you asked, because we want you to go to Billings and Halstead Teaching and Nursing. This, we like to say, is our Bible when it comes to nursing education, our ability to truly go deeper and have an understanding of not only the what teaching strategy, but the why as well. All right, so that's what we're going to look at. Starting on page 30, this is the sixth edition. You can see box 2.1, as well as information about the COBE experiential learning model and figure 2.2 through page 32. So again, sixth edition, pages 30 to 32 is going to give us a deeper understanding about teaching strategies we should use to align with the four different types of learners, as well as explanations and rationale associated with those teaching strategies that we're going to use. Now, for those curriculum experts out there, I do know that there's been research that talks about the importance of not only focusing on the different learning styles, but also understanding that we as facilitators of learning should engage across all teaching styles and strategies to make sure that we're connecting with all of our students. So it's not just about one teaching strategy, it's really about what is going to help our students have a better understanding, a deeper understanding of the concept that we're talking about. All right. So again, it's not just about one way to learn, it's about helping our students learn differently. So when you take a look at box 2.1, this is using the VARC framework. You can see for our oral learners or our auditory learners, debates, which is one of my favorites, discussions, stories, guest speakers, chats are all great ways to engage our auditory learner. And what we have to remember is just because we're sharing content, just because we're teaching, it doesn't mean our students are learning. We want to consider not only how our students learn, but also what specific strategies are we checking off the list that we have integrated into our teaching plans to better connect with our students. All right, so that's another takeaway. We want you to write down, as an example, one teaching strategy you're currently using, as we talked about earlier, and how to improve it. And then that second part, we want you to consider writing down two new strategies that you've never used before. Maybe you're going to use this resource box 2.1. Maybe you're going to use that to help you have a deeper understanding of additional teaching strategies that you want to use. Maybe you identify that you have, as you reflect on your teaching plan for the last, let's just say 2 sessions, maybe you identify that you only engage with 2 different types of learners, and there's an opportunity for you to improve in that area. All right, so that's what this is about. How do we get better? How do we improve the learning experience for our students so that they are able to meet those learning objectives? The next step we're going to take is to go to the NLN website. When you go there, what you're going to see is information about competency 1. Okay, so when you look at competency 1, it's all about our ability to truly engage students in the learning experience that we develop to help them have this deeper understanding of knowledge that we know they need to have. So where you're going to go is NLN website, and then you're going to be able to click on NLN credentialing and identify what specific exam you're going to take. All right, so once you click on NLN credentialing, then you're going to click on the left-hand side certification division, and then you will choose which exam you're going to take. Okay, so we're just going to take a look at the C&E exam as an example, and you're going to be able to see the candidate handbook. Okay, so when you look at the candidate handbook, and we always want you to go to the website, okay, NLN website, because from time to time they make changes. And so the part you're going to look at for our discussion today is competency 1. Well, what do we know about competency 1? It's all about our ability to show up and to engage in these evidence-based practices so we can support the learning process. Let's take a look at competency 1B. You will see that specifically it talks about being able, and I'll make this a little bit larger, being able to use teaching and learning strategies based on educational theories and evidence-based practices related to education. It's not enough for us to mention content or to share content with our students that is only going to focus on meeting a learning objective. Okay, so I'm going to say that again. It's not enough just for us to only focus on a teaching strategy that is going to help us meet a learning objective. That's great. However, we want to go deeper. So specifically, what are those learner outcomes that I expect my students to be able to walk away with? And how does it align with the exam blueprint? How does it align with the actual textbook and the assigned readings that I have given my students to complete? We want to make sure that there's purpose in the teaching strategies that we're using, and our students are able to walk away having a deep learning, having the ability to really apply these concepts that we're talking about. All right, so now what we're going to do is take a look at a thought-provoking question. And I want you to, again, just keep thinking about education theory. It's actually, those are listed out, the major ones in table 14.1 in Billings and Halstead. So that's going to be another resource to help you clarify any muddy points that you may have about this specific concept. Now we're going to take a look at our thought-provoking question, and I want you to write down, as I'm going through these actual options, the rationale for the correct and the incorrect option. That's what helps us have a deeper understanding of these concepts. It's not just about being able to answer these thought-provoking questions correct. That's great. It's about understanding the why. When you look at the three learning domains, and that those are in Billings and Halstead, pages 188 through 190, it's important to look at all three, right? All three taxonomies, and see how we scaffold learning as students have that foundational knowledge. We want to build on it. They can't stay at that lowest level. Making sure we understand not only the cognitive and psychomotor, but also the affective learning domain. What are those verbs at each level? How do my teaching strategies truly align with the level of learning that is expected as students progress up to that highest form of learning for that cognitive learning domain? All right, so we'll take a look at this thought-provoking question, then I will close the loop on that really important point that I want you to be able to walk away with. You just taught a lesson on prioritizing care for post-op patients. Which assessment strategy best measures synthesis and critical thinking? A 10-question quiz with multiple choice answers. B, asking students to rank 4 post-op patients and justify their decisions. Or C, ask students to define prioritization and list the ABCs. For every question on the CNE exam, you're going to have 2 thoughts to consider before you answer. Number 1, what is this question really asking me? Number 2, what is it that I know for sure about content included in this question? If you chose B, round of applause. We do want to acknowledge and celebrate that you were able to choose the correct answer, which is asking students to really rank those 4 post-op patients, to prioritize their care. And let's talk about why. Synthesis, we know, is an important concept for students to really be able to demonstrate, to articulate, to talk through with us. It requires them to integrate the data into their decision making, which, when we look at ranking and justification, that's exactly what's achieved in this thought-provoking question. If you need to go deeper related to higher order thinking skills, you're going to use Billings and Halstead, page 185. That's the context that is, and the content that is going to help you better understand the situation that we described. And that's exactly what context is. It is the ability for us to take a situation, to create meaning associated with that situation, that clinical experience that students are having, and have a discussion, having an open-ended Socratic inquiry type of framework. So we're asking those open-ended questions and having discussions with students about their rationale, their decision that they included and considered when making that patient care decision. All right, so that's what we want to think about as it relates to our students. And then as we wrap up and looking back at the competencies again, that's exactly what we want you to do. So when you're going through the C&E blueprint, all 63 of these sub-competency statements, we want you to think about, what is this question not only asking me, but how does this behavior show up in my teaching strategies, in the teaching practices that I'm using? If you feel like, you know what, I would say 7 out of 10 times that I'm teaching, this practice shows up. That's great. That's a thumbs up. If you feel like it's not consistent in your practice, then that's an opportunity for you to integrate this teaching strategy. And you may be wondering, okay, why are we talking about application? Good reason why. I'm glad you asked. So when it comes to competency 1, you see there's 47 questions aligned with this one competency. That's a whole lot of questions, because when you look at the total exam, there are 150 questions. You will have 3 hours to take the exam, and there are 130 questions that are scored. So 47 is quite a large number. In fact, it's the largest number of questions for any of the competencies. You will see 7 questions are aligned with that recall, the lowest level. Now, this is important, right? You're not going to be able to achieve that passing score if you stay at that lowest level of learning, which is memorizing or having recall, like the cognitive learning domain describes. It's not enough, though. We have to be able to build on that knowledge. So let me give you an example. When it comes, let me give you a clinical example, then I'll give you an actual nurse educator example. When it comes to our ability to truly engage our students with application and integration, we want them to, first of all, understand, as an example, what normal vital signs are. That's common in our health assessment course, in our fundamental course. We want to make sure students have that solid foundation. And next, we want to build on that foundation. So when our students are actually understanding why it's so important for them to list the vital signs, we know that's step one, right? They have to be able to list the normal vital signs. Step two is we want them to be able to actually demonstrate the ability to take those vital signs. Step three is we want them to integrate and apply that knowledge where they're analyzing what decisions they're going to make and why when it comes to a blood pressure medication, a beta blocker like metoprolol. We don't want students to rely on a written order that says, check blood pressure. If less than 90, hold metoprolol, right? We don't want them to rely on that. We want them to be able to identify what specific nursing practices they need to put in place before they give a medication. This is a critical part of the clinical judgment model, recognizing those cues, figuring out what's going on when something's not right, and then figuring out what next steps they should take. That's a really important part when we talk about safe patient care. All right, so let's mix it up a little bit and take a look. You all know I didn't have my pen last week when I wanted to describe a little bit more detail about what we were going to explore related to a specific concept. The good news is I have my pen today, so we're going to use the iPad to go deeper in understanding a couple of the concepts that I want us to close out our time together today about. So first, I want you to write down a barrier. What's one barrier to your success when you think about moving forward on your CNE journey? Okay, so what's just one barrier that you're experiencing related to your CNE journey? And then I want us to talk about how can we overcome that barrier. All right, so hopefully you've written it down. So let's talk about the 3 top barriers I hear colleagues describing when they're on this journey. All right, so the first barrier I hear them talking about is time. Time. So if time is a barrier for you, this is one strategy I want you to consider to help you overcome that barrier. All right, so that's going to be scheduling. Okay, so scheduling your time to ensure that you are indeed having enough time to focus on those key concepts that are going to help you focus, stay focused as it relates to your time. Because you're absolutely right. We all have only a certain amount of time. All right. So that's often the number one barrier. Maybe it is for you too, is time. Okay. So time. The second barrier we hear from colleagues is going to be resources. That's a barrier, not knowing where to start. Perfect, because we're going to talk about that. The third barrier that we often hear about is fear. Fear of what? Fear of failure, because nobody wants to fail, right? We hear from NLN as of 2025, only 74% passed the CNE exam. Okay. The good news is that's a step in the right direction, but it's still not quite where we want to be. All right, so that's what you want to think about. Those are the top 3 that we hear from colleagues. And if that's not one of your 3, feel free to email us and we'll be happy to talk about how you can overcome your challenges or the barriers to you moving forward. So we talked about time, blocking time on your schedule every single week to focus on content. Number 2, resources. We're going to talk about the correct resources that you should use. Number 3, fear of failure. Devotional is a great way to overcome that fear of failure. The second strategy you can use is identifying what helps you work through fear. Oftentimes, it can be a reflective practice, it can be prayer. Sometimes it's just talking out what that frustration looks like for you so that you are naming it, whatever that fear is for you. And then second of all, you're moving through it, right? That's the goal, is that even though that the reality is that fear may still be there, our ability to truly move through it is what's going to help us get through it, right? So identifying what those fears are and what your next steps are going to be so you can get through it. Okay, so now let's take a look. Next is going to be our resources. So what are those resources that we should use as we're moving forward on our journey? This is where our success framework comes into play. The first resource we want to use is your experience. We have consistently seen that colleagues that have 3+ years of experience are associated with the increased C&E success rate. Okay. The second resource and success component we want you to think about is going to be Billings and Halstead. Okay. Right now we're using the 6th edition, as you know, but we know the 7th edition is also available. The next resource you're going to use is Dr. Caputi's C&E review book. Now it is optional. Just make sure you get the 2nd edition, because the 1st edition doesn't have the information you need to know as it relates to the simulation as well as online learning. And there are some other elements that are not in that 1st edition. So you want to make sure you get the 2nd edition. And then that 3rd resource is going to be the workbook. Okay, that is our study workbook, and it is included in our C&E in 60 Days program. All right, so those are the resources. No other resources are needed. Okay, I know we get that question a lot. You wonder, oh, should I use practice questions? There's really no evidence that correlates taking more practice questions is going to help you achieve success. Now, we know that's true when it comes to the actual NCLEX, but not true when it comes to the C&E exam. All right, and then the last component of the success framework is going to be support. Okay, so what should support look like? It could be our YouTube channel or any of our social media platforms that you may be watching this on right now. It can also be one-on-one coaching, and it can be a review course, okay? Or it can be a live review like our masterclass. Okay, our masterclass is also included in our C&E in 60 Days program. As you're thinking about what your next steps are going to be, you want to know, where's your level of support? Consistent support is key. How many years of experience do you have? If you have less than 3 years, it doesn't mean you're not going to be successful. It just means that you're going to spend more time reviewing concepts to make sure that you have this deep understanding that we're talking about, allowing you to apply and analyze. Remember, it's not enough just to understand the what those teaching practices are. We also have to understand the why. And then the last component to ensure that you are fully equipped to achieve C&E success is resources. Our study workbook, Dr. Caputi's review book is an optional resource, and then Billings and Halstead, 6th or 7th edition. This is our success framework that has consistently supported nurse educator colleagues on the journey to achieve excellence and to become a better nurse educator as they achieve certification. We know that the transformative process involves all of us being more intentional and focusing on our ability to engage students on this learning journey. And we also want to make sure that we have the support that we need to achieve success. So what that looks like is being invested, fully invested, looking at this blueprint, identifying where your gaps are, and most importantly, where is going to be your source of support to ensure that you're continuing to become a better nurse educator every single day. That's what helps our patients receive better care and helps equip our nursing students and future nurses and nurse educators and nurse leaders with that foundation that they need to move forward in their career. C&E in 60 Days is our signature program. We continue to see a 98 to 100% success rate when following our 60-day study plan. And remember, we're here to support you until you are successful, no matter how long it takes. We hope this snapshot has been helpful, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take a to reflect and enjoy your day. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. It took me almost 8 years to pass the certification exam. As a nurse educator and even as a nurse, I knew I wanted to achieve my certification in my specialty. And when I became a nurse educator, it was loud and clearly stated that NLN C&E is the hallmark of excellence when it comes to being a nurse educator. So I knew it was on my bucket list. I had no idea it would take 8 years for me to actually get it off of my list. And the reasons why is because first and foremost, I didn't know where to start. Okay. I had no idea what resources to use, and it was hard to find a community to support me that would go along with me on this journey to achieve CNE success. The good news is you don't have to go through the struggles that I did. We have a community with Dr. Sellers Educate specifically designed to overcome and break through those barriers to achieving CNE success. It starts with number one, the right resources, number two, the right experts, and number three, compressing time. 60 days, that's all that you need to accomplish your goal of passing the Certified Nurse Educator exam. The other point I want to remind you all of is that life happens. Sometimes we get off track. And for that reason, when you join CNE in 60 Days program, you have access to the recordings indefinitely. They never expire. So no longer do you have to wait. Do you have to put it off like I did? You're ready now. And we're ready to help you. We're walking along with you every single step of the way until you are successful. Go to our website, drsellerseducate.com. You're going to see CNE in 60 Days right on our homepage, and we look forward to seeing you in the program. Oh, one other point, there's nothing else to buy. Once you register for the 60 Days program, your textbooks, which are going to be Dr. Caputi's CNE review book, Billings and Halstead, as well as your study workbook that includes the 7-week study plan, are going to show up on your front doorstep. Okay, so that's the other benefit. So we'll see you over in the CNE in 60 Days program. Have a great one, everybody.